Hey guys, welcome to Crypto Talk Now Live. We have a full house here today with Max, Daniel, and of course myself, Larry, and your lovable crypto family-friendly dog, Patches. So let's start out by saying hello to everybody that's here. Max, of course. Max, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great. I was excited to see that our fellow colleague and friend Daniel Gayton was going to be a special guest tonight, and so on. And I was thinking, you know what? Let's try to hear what Daniel has to share, in especially when it comes to the overall market, like the thumbnail basically is mentioned. But earlier, I also saw that you had some coverage about KuCoin, and I was looking more into KuCoin because obviously I have a lot of my crypto there as well. So I would love to get your input in regards to that here in a bit. After, of course, we welcome some of our community.
Yeah, sure.
How are you doing this evening, Daniel?
Man, I'm doing great. Living the dream, living that crypto dream up and down. So doing great.
All right, cool. Once again, we're happy that you joined us. Let's say hello to the audience, and then we'll get right into Max's news, and we'll get some commentary from you as well, Daniel. All right, so let's see who's here. Brittany is here. She says, "Happy Thursday." Thank you so much, Miss T. Tim Shea is here. He says, "Hey," because that's what Tim Shea says.
We love
Brian,
to.
everybody
There,
loves
there.
Tim Shea and Brian Dowie. All you guys, Brittany, you guys are all the OGs of OGs. Brian Dowie is here, of course, saying hello. So Max, what are we tell us what we're talking about this evening?
Well, a few key things. The first one of the day, especially, we're just going to kind of let a few more people, I guess you could say, kind of like the late stragglers, come on in. But we're definitely going to address some of the concerns in regards to KuCoin. Me personally, just for the record, I feel as though it's opportunist type FUD. Because the reason I'm going to state that is, as you guys know, I've been on KuCoin for the longest time and so on. And I get the whole concept of not your keys, not your crypto, get everything off exchanges. Hey, I'm not going to debate that. But I will state this: they had these promotions long before the whole thing with FTX and so on. And I think it's just a lot of, again, trying to keep up with that opportunistic FUD type news, because let's face it, it does trend, and a lot of media outlets and so on want to continue that because it gets more eyeballs on it and so on. Take it as you will. I also saw, of course, Daniel, I didn't get a chance to watch your whole thing on the video you put out earlier, but I saw a little bit of it, and I thought, you know what, this would be the perfect opportunity to talk about this, as Larry would say, a segue into the conversation about this whole thing with KuCoin.
Yeah, I seen some tweets going around that KuCoin's wallets weren't matching what they were actually reporting on their balance sheets. So, I went in and looked myself. I went to the balance sheet and I looked at the wallets, and people are right. What they reported out for their balance sheet and then the wallets they had connected. There was less in the wallets than there was that they reported, but people have to understand that there's withdrawals that take place between the time of reporting and the time of you looking, and and people are running away from exchanges right now, so there probably is a lot of withdrawals coming out of there. And like I said in my video, I by no means think that KuCoin is insolvent or in any type of jeopardy at all. But what you see reported for their actual reserves isn't exactly what's there. And it'll fluctuate from day to day. But there was some wallets in there that had some big time Bitcoin missing out of them that people withdrew, or you've traced the transactions back, they withdrew them. They were withdrawals off the exchange. I looked at, I also had the opportunity to look at some of their staking. That was, I forget exactly what they call it, but it's a double staking, double reward type of staking with high APYs on it. And they have had them there for a while. I don't fully understand how they work and how they could pay that APY out continuously, but they've been there for a while. Their staking APYs are a little bit higher than other exchanges, but they've been that way for a little while. So I wanted to say, in that video, yes, you're right. The wallets do not match what they reported out by a lot. But it's due to withdrawals, and yes, their APY is a little bit high. That's probably a way to keep, you know, people on the exchange as long as they can, but KuCoin has a lot of reserves still left over in there. So, just something to keep an eye on. And I think too that, a lot of people have eyes on exchanges right now. So, as these balance sheets start to come out, people are going to dig into them. And, it's really up to the exchanges to prove to us that they have the reserves that they say that they have. And that's kind of how I feel about it.
Well, thank you for that. And anybody that's just joining us, I know that most of everybody here is OGs of OGs of OGs. But if you do not know who this gentleman is that has joined the Max and Larry show along with Patches, is Daniel Gayton. And you can see him right up on the screen. You can go ahead and subscribe to him. He gives out some great content. He was talking, of course, about KuCoin today, as Max mentioned. Talks about the FTX debacle. He gives you Volt Inu updates, updates on MetaMonkey AI, of course. So you can go ahead and subscribe to him. It's just his name, Daniel Space Gayton. So let's get Max, if you want to respond to some of the things that Daniel was mentioning, and if you want to go a little bit further into.
Yeah, absolutely do.
Yeah.
I think that'd be great. And of course, I saw a few more people that just recently came in. And so on, like Menelect and, for instance, Michael Montclair and so on. I just want to go ahead and welcome you guys. Thank you for joining us here tonight at CTN with our wonderful special guest, who is the one, the only Daniel Gayton. So with that said, we are on the hot topic of what's going on with KuCoin, because let's face it, when it comes to all the centralized exchange fiasco and so on, you got to find another one to target. Might as well target this specific one. Now, in regards to insolvency and things like that, of course, KuCoin has stated multiple times that, there's no indicators that it's insolvent and so on. But I'm going to share this particular article, of course, and it comes straight from Decrypt in the regard of what's going on with KuCoin. And, for the average person who, sees this, for instance, posted today, it does draw concern, because they see it and they think, okay, what's this whole thing about sky high yields and so on? You got to keep in mind, if you're a type person like myself who's been trading on KuCoin for, like, I don't know, coming up on 2 years, basically, this is no big, like, newsworthy type thing. They've been doing this for the longest time. Heck, you guys know I cover the likes of, for instance, Clearpool, and for the longest time, Clearpool even had, boasted 100% APY for the longest time. So it's not something that's like not out of the norm, if you will, right? But what really draws concern, of course, is what you see here. It mentions the APRs of course, 233.15% on Ethereum, 253+% on Bitcoin, and then even the whole thing with Tether. And don't even get me started on the whole thing with Tether. That's another story, because then that's just going to fuel that conversation of, well, Tether's going to collapse. Maybe we'll get into that on a different
that's a whole
show. Yes, that's a deep, big rabbit hole I don't want to go down right now at this moment. Some of the key highlights I definitely want to show here, and that is, for instance, it says this specifically: the attention has set a 24-hour volume on the exchange, which of course was at basically 640, roughly, not exactly, million yesterday, up of course 862 million today, making it the 5th largest centralized exchange by normalized volume, according to source CoinGecko. That of course raised some eyebrows, like I mentioned, it's right here on crypto Twitter. You guys see it yourself probably, especially shout out to some of you guys like, Tim Shea, Brian Dowie, heck, even Coochie Boy, right? Really active people on Twitter, especially, if you're into crypto. And it keeps popping up and so on, creates the conversations. And let's face it, these type of conversations, they're warranted. I get it with everything with FTX and so on. But again, it is part of just that, the narrative of FUD. So it said, raised eyebrows and so on. People who defended, dismissed the criticism about what's going on and so on. But then you have, for instance, like a person like this. It's just like, what's happening on KuCoin, USDT, 100%, ETH, 186% up. So this is a glitch. What the heck is going on? But again, these are just particular promotions and so on. But it draws concern because it's the timing. And I'm kind of with people on this as far as the timing. So I'm just going to elaborate on this for a little bit, and I'm going to kick it over to Daniel especially. But my thing is, it is kind of like, as the saying goes, bad timing, because when you look into, for instance, what happened with the likes of Celsius, especially with what happened recently with the likes of FTX and so on. It's like that whole concept of quote unquote, Ponzi schemes and so on, like we explained here before, where you have literally, you're taking new investor money to pay off old investors, give them incentives. Why? Because maybe there's a flash crash and they're trying to prevent that. I get all the conspiracies and so on. And that's, of course, where I'm going to kick it into Daniel. I want to get your thought and insight about this. Is it just bad timing? Is it just a little bit more of FUD? Is it what's trending? Give me your feedback.
I think I have a completely different take on it. I don't think it's FUD. I think this is the crypto industry in itself really starting to grow and look into things differently than they used to look into them, and especially centralized exchanges, because they come under so much fire lately. And I think your average investor is really starting to ask different types of questions now. It's like, what is backing up my money? What do you have on your exchange that's going to secure my withdrawals? So I think with that, I think they're looking for education, and they're looking for that proof of reserves. And I think that this lends itself to a lot of questions through every centralized exchange. I don't think there's a centralized exchange that's exempt from this. You look at Crow is going through the same thing right now as KuCoin's going through. People are really questioning their proof of reserves, and they want to see them. And I look at this as actually a good thing. I look at it as transparency, and I look at it as, you know, the average investor is starting to catch up to the likes of Fidelity and places like that, where they want to say, you know what, I want to invest in you. I want to do business on your centralized exchange, but show me that you're going to be around for me and that you have my money backed up. And I think this is part of that education process. And this is part of that cryptocurrency growing to the mainstream, and really like putting itself out there. But as far as the APYs go, everything that I've looked at over the past couple of days before I put that video out on KuCoin, and that's why I said what I said, it's nothing new. KuCoin's been doing this for a long time, and I tried to understand what their staking mechanism is for these dual staking that they have, and that's where your real high APYs are. It's not, if I want to go in and stake Ethereum, just Ethereum, I'm not going to get 100% APY.
Right. I'm
I
glad you pointed that out. Yeah.
I
That's
have to
yeah.
yeah, I have to go into this dual staking mechanism, which I don't understand it, so I would never do it. And the more I read about it, the more confused I get. It's not
Right. It's very confusing to the average investor that just came in. Yeah.
so. I think, but it's nothing new. They've been doing this forever, and
Well, it's true.
they
I'm
they
just looking at the new guys, what I'm saying.
yeah, and they've been safe forever. But when you read headlines like that in the mainstream media, it strikes fear into people who don't know. They're like, "Well, how can you
Absolutely.
pay out 100% APY on Ethereum? You're gonna go broke doing it, right?" So, but they don't drill down and say, "Well, this is a dual staking mechanism that KuCoin has, and they've always had it, and the payouts are this, and here's actually the metrics that they use to pay out, and this is why they can do this." They don't drill that far down because them aren't headline worthy, right?
Yeah, I mean, and another thing people also have to consider, I mean, it's not like it's, like going to cover the whole year. I mean, usually these
No.
promotions are like, 14-day, 15-day, 30-day at the very max that I've seen. You're not going to see these dual, staking yields or whatever for 90 days. I definitely don't see that. If that was the case, I mean, heck, we're talking about the volume going from, was it 600 plus million to, over 832 million. It would be like literally probably a flat trillion or something. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because everybody would just flock into there and so on. And then that would definitely draw concerns, because then, it would create extreme fear of like another monumental collapse, in my opinion. Larry, have you ever done a dual staking before in your lifetime?
No.
Uh,
I've only staked a little bit on crypto.com. I didn't get too involved with the staking. I do not understand. I'd have to research it or listen to you gentlemen more to understand the dual staking. I will say this real quick. I'll just throw this in there because we're having a great show. You guys are doing great back and forth. I'll say that I think I love saying the word behoove. it behooves these exchanges, these centralized exchanges, to get out in front and be proactive. And for example, have the transparency of showing their reserves, because it's going to come anyway to a point in time where they're going to be forced to do certain things from the regulatory bodies, whatever bodies are going to be regulating them in the US, or that's the SEC or whatever. So I think that they're all going to have to go through it at some point. And I think they just, need to be proactive. Let me just bring in a couple comments here to keep everybody in concert with the show. Tim Shea says, I think the biggest changes that will make it realize that they are under more scrutiny than ever. The real ones will tighten up any areas that may have been lacking. Mentalek says KuCoin should be approached with great caution. And Tim Shea again says, I think exchanges are realizing that they will be used mostly for trading purposes, as they should, not as much for storage.
That is a great statement. That should be like literally posted everywhere. Like that should go mainstream in my humble opinion, not just because it's Tim Shea, but I mean, literally think about what he just said.
Yeah.
That totally makes sense. Yeah. I like that statement.
And that's what I try to tell people too, is use centralized exchanges exactly what they're built, exactly for what they're built for. Exchanging your crypto and getting it off the exchange. Nothing in a centralized exchange says hold your money.
Well, it happens to the biggest, some of the bigger investors out there, because I think it happened to Mr. Wonderful, who I actually like. He had too much on FTX, and I think that they might be viewing it as a traditional, like almost like a stock brokerage, these centralized crypto exchanges. So they just there's security issues when it comes to crypto, and I just think that it's a good idea to, like Tim Shea is saying, to make your trades and stuff like that, and then move it over to cold storage if you can. But let me just say hello to somebody new. I haven't seen him here before. The name sounds a little bit familiar. Have you seen David Fletcher? He says Common Sense Crypto was talking about Pulse Trump coin the other day. Looks really cool, and reward is in Volt. Thank you so much for joining us, David Fletcher. I have not seen you here before, but we appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thank you for that, David Fletcher. I haven't seen you before either. Want to, of course, give you the warm CTM welcome. So we have a very welcoming community, and if anything, again, questions, comments, anything like this, we really do appreciate it. I follow, of course, Rich, aka Common Sense Crypto, as well. I didn't see that particular one where he mentions Pulse Trump. I know that he's a pro Trump advocate and so on. But if anything, that is interesting in regards to Volt. I know that, for instance, Daniel covers Volt quite often. Have you heard anything in regards to this, in regards to Pulse Trump and also rewarding in Volt,
No, this is new to me too.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, we'd have to look into that, but thank you for the comment, David. But yeah, so I think that, you're going to see a period where there's going to be a lot of scrutiny. Like, Tim said, there'll be a lot more, pulling out the microscope, pulling out the, examination glasses, whatever you want to call it, to really look at these exchanges. But this is what's going to happen. I was eating lunch with my nephew earlier today, and we were talking, and he said, boy, Larry, he said, this FTX thing is bad. It's like a black eye for crypto. It's because, even somebody like my mom, who's not into crypto, it's a generational thing. It's just not her thing. And she doesn't really understand it. She watches the show sometimes, but, it made the mainstream media, as everyone knows, FTX. And she's like messaging me saying, things about Sammy. Right. So, it's a shame that a lot of times when something big happens in crypto, like the Terra Luna crash, things like that, the Bitcoin going up to like whatever, 69,000, that hit the mainstream media. Those type of things hit. But most of the time, do you guys notice it's all the negative stuff that's getting into the mainstream media? So it may be keeping people, new people from coming in. They're just that much more hesitant or maybe even scared. Do you guys notice that happening with crypto?
Oh, it definitely causes a lot of that fear, people being scared. But it's mainly, I would say, the newcomers or people that just came in like maybe a little bit before that. Then they're starting to hold off, like, man, I don't know about this whole crypto thing and so on. But I would say for people like who have been in it for like, say, 2 years, 4 years, 5 years, longer than that and so on, they recognize that, yeah, this sucks. I'm not saying that they're rooting for this. I mean, because that would be horrible. Like if you're, for instance, what's his name just mentioned, Rich from Common Sense Crypto. He even pointed out quite a few times, this is not something that anybody should root for. If people are rooting for exchanges to collapse, you are part of the problem, really. And we're talking about people's life savings and so on here, but if anything, even with that much more of a drastic collapse, it's just like it's always good to have some reserve money on hand to take advantage of these particular times. Because let's face it, I mean, God forbid if KuCoin did collapse as some of these other exchanges and so on, and it just was like the ultimate crypto apocalypse, right? Like nukes going off left and right? Like just
I think it would be if Binance went under. I mean, if something like
I don't
that
see
happened,
Binance going under, but I'm saying like some of these other ones, for instance, like it would definitely just hurt the overall crypto industry even that much more. And if anything, I mean, as far as new investor money coming in, that's going to hold that from happening just that much longer and so on. Like it would definitely be a huge dent. I mean, like the whole speculation of Bitcoin going down to like 12K and stuff like that, like then that becomes even that much more realistic. And if anything, talking about that support, then people would be talking about like, no, this is going to go below 12K. This is going to like maybe drop below like 9K. You're going to hear a lot of that, even that much more. People are going to talk about ETH, for instance, going down to like maybe 400, 500 and so on. I'm not going to say this thing's going to zero because obviously we know that, people have, for instance, lost seed phrases and so on. So that's never going to be touched. So zero is just not realistic. But as far as going down to some of these insane crash levels, that could be realistic and so on. So again, your reserve money, like, taking advantage of that and so on. Some people have it, some people don't. But I definitely say even as we speak with what going on in the market and so on, it's definitely appealing in that perspective compared to, let's face it, the beginning of this year and where the prices were for a lot of these. So,
yeah, and I think that a lot of this has affected new investors coming into crypto a lot, and this is why you don't see the market cap over $1 trillion right now. Is because it has affected a lot of the money that's in crypto, and FTX was a big deal. And I do not root for any centralized exchange to fall, especially some of the bigger ones, because I don't think that the cryptocurrency market can withstand another blow, kind of like FTX. And I never think that crypto is going to die. I think that blockchain is here to stay forever. But I think as far as a money deal and an investing deal, like let's say if Crow goes down or a KuCoin goes down or somebody like that, it's going to have devastating impacts on the market, and nobody's rooting for that. Nobody wants that.
Oh, it's kind of like the SEC that battling against XRP. So even if you're not into XRP or you don't like XRP, it's the SEC defeating XRP would be a loss for the overall crypto market. It would send shockwaves. I think that would be really, really devastating. But I think that XRP is going to win. But yeah, of course, we're not going to root for anybody to go out. And I don't think, well, maybe some of the exchanges want each other to kind of go out because they're in really heated competition. But
going off of what Max said too, having as an investor, from an investor standpoint on this thing, because of the situation that we're in and because of the market that we're in at this current moment, I tell everybody, that I possibly can tell, cash is a position right now, and have cash on hand because you never know what's going to happen. And you have to be, if you don't have cash on hand, you can't buy the bad news. Like I like to say, you got to buy the bad news sometimes. And when FTX went down and Celsius went down and, Three Arrows Capital happened, there was bad news there. And, investors are going to take advantage of that bad news and they're going to solidify their positions in certain projects. And, that's just the world of investing. That's just the world that we live in, whether it's the stock market or the crypto market. It's investing, and things happen and people take advantage of that situation. And I take advantage of all the dips, all the dips that I can. So I don't root for the dips, but if they come, I'm buying them.
Yeah, that's the way I look at it too.
Let's bring in Keegan Kang, not to be confused with King Kong. Hi guys, just want to know your take on Cardano And if you think there is more downside on the price, is the bottom in? Anybody
Who wants
want
to
to
go
answer
first
that
on? Who wants to go first on that one?
I'll let one of you guys go first on Cardano.
I'm not a Cardano guy. Cardano moves a little bit too slow for me.
Yeah.
It's I think that from a pure technical analysis standpoint on Cardano, I think the bottom has been at Cardano for a long time. It's been pretty stagnant. It hasn't really moved in a while, out of a big trading range. Um, you know, Cardano's just not a big mover.
It isn't, and I'm glad you mentioned that. For instance, with Daniel. So for me, it's like again the whole. For me, like the main focus for Cardano is, a quality ecosystem. That's kind of like what they built on, if you will. And when you look more into it, it's just like even yet there is no one really out there in their ecosystem, and which is like, man, this is done. Like if you look really into it, the conglomerate of what they have in their ecosystem is a bunch of, let's face it, good quality projects, but they're still in that project phase. And until they get over that hump of these are done, I think that also affects the whole thing of like why we don't see a lot of it doesn't move much. Now, the only one that really is moving and is reflective upon that is the standout one that is part of their ecosystem. That's Singularity Net, right? So, I mean, you've seen that one in the market, especially in this bear crypto winter. That one does show movement, but again, that's the only real standout one. I can't really name a bunch of others because they're ongoing projects, and as a result, it's kind of like the whole concept of this particular meme token with the vision of the future. Here's what we hope to accomplish on a roadmap. There's so many different ones part of the ecosystem that are reflective upon just that, and until they get, like, I would say at least 10 solid ones where they're finished, like here's the product, here's what we got, we're delivering now. It's always going to be this, I guess you could say it's not even really a cycle, but it's kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of stuck in the mud or it doesn't move, like what Daniel was basically mentioning. So
And I'll expand on that and tell you how I look at these top 100 crypto blue chips. If the market's up consistently 6 to 7%, maybe 10%, and what you're investing in as a blue chip is only up 2-3%, it's probably not going to move in the bull market either. If it's
It
not
didn't do anything in the last bull run, that's for sure.
yeah, that's the whole debate, because I mean,
Yeah.
remember the whole thing with for instance, God, what was it, that one fork they had and so on, and that seemed like it was going to be a really big thing, and it was for a short period of time, but it was nothing like just monumental or something like insanely parabolic. Don't get me wrong, I mean the price increase they had for the short period of time was fine, but like you guys were saying, it didn't really move tremendously in that bull market, and that does draw some concern.
Pulse chain hex crypto p hex e hex blockchain nodes. Every time he comes here, he make the usernames longer and longer. Max is pretty solid. The exchange there. Hopefully the government sells the bottom and we go up. Bound to happen. Let's see here. Michael Montclair just now transferred my B-Rise to a DeFi cold wallet from KuCoin. Okay.
Oh wow, yeah.
Tim Shea says time to eat while the price is right. So, I'm going against everything because I'm waiting I have a small building that I'm selling, and I'm going to take the cash from that and dollar cost average into the ISOs. But I always, sort of grew up saying you can't time the market, right? Don't try to time the market. But just this one time, if I could just get it right, it's like I won't ever do it again.
That's how people get wrecked.
I know. That's what I keep thinking. That's what I'm saying. Like, Larry, what are you doing? You're going against everything you know. Yeah, you're right. But so the bull run, I think I might have asked you last time, Daniel, but I don't remember what you said. When do you think the bull run's going to start? If you had to, what's your best educated guess on it?
I think you're not looking at anything close to a bull run until the end of 2023, going into 2024. And I think if the FTX fallout continues to put a stain on the market, I think you're probably looking at 2024 just to even start it. But I always look at market cap to predict that. The last bull run, would we hit 3 trillion? I don't think that for a crypto market you can even utter the words bull run until your market cap is at a trillion and a half at least to even think about it.
So you're thinking, so your theory is that the FTX thing kind of pushed the bull run off even more.
Yeah, I think the FTX thing plus the external factors that we have going on in the world with the wars and inflation and everything else is just pushing all the markets down. And I don't think that that's going to be anywhere near under control until at least the end of 2023. And, so around summer 2023, maybe the end of 2023, you can start to look at it. Is my thought. And any setback that we have right now is probably going to push us to 2024.
Are you thinking the same way, Max? 2024?
There's I realize the majority of people are saying, I even heard some people say as far out as 2025 and so on. I definitely, kind of almost there with what Daniel's basically mentioned. I am sticking with the minority approach of the whole 4-year cycles. Again, like the two guys I mainly follow when it comes to following some of the data, Charlie Schramm, Luke Lango, and so on. I just feel as though that they have enough evidence to show that we can snap out of this. I will also state this. I understand the other side of the debate, right? So people were saying, well, for instance, back in 2020, especially 2021 with the whole, pandemic and so on, that, basically, that was really good for crypto. And, there's been other talk about like, well, why was it really good for crypto? Is it because people have, for instance, stimulus money or, and it's like, well, a lot of people are without jobs and so on, but if anything, it's kind of like they wanted to see the light at the end of the tunnel, if you will, right? Things are not working out for me. This might work out, right? I'm hearing rumors that so and so threw a bunch of money at Doge or something like that, and how that ballooned and so on. I want some of that. So I mean, people, I guess you could say, have some of that extra money. How does that apply towards now? Well, I think the negative aspect is the inflation that's going on as we speak. There isn't that extra money. So those things combined with, macroeconomics to a sense. I mean, there's a lot of different factors. But again, if you look into what, for instance, these 4-year cycles, keep repeating it, back with Bitcoin and so on, that does represent a huge portion of the overall crypto market and that shift and where we're going to go here soon. I personally think it's going to happen maybe towards the end of the first quarter of 2023. There's enough data to basically show that. Now, granted, if something crazy was to happen, like China invades Taiwan or something like that, then of course that gets put on hold, if you will. But I mean, based on current market conditions and so on, I am leaning more towards that. And I know that's a minority approach to it and so on, but I'm rocking with that. That's where I'm going with that. I'm seeing like literally the end of the first quarter 2021. That's roughly 2023. I don't know why I said 2020. 2023. That is in line with, for one, what's going on with the ISOs and so on. And that's a whole other talk in itself. Think about this. So for instance, I mentioned on a recorded video and I said, do the math. Well, I have already done the math. So based on the current national debt of the United States alone, right, is at 31 trillion and expected to go to 41 trillion by 2026. But let's just base it on the current one and so on, right? So for one, in March, we have the whole thing of the flip of the switch, supposedly with ISO 222. If, for instance, this on-demand liquidity that's going to be supplied and so on, and for instance, some of these ones, who they are and so on, right, taking on the quote-unquote debt, that taking on that debt will dramatically increase not the market cap of just, for instance, the likes of XRP and XLM and so on, but the overall crypto market cap. Now, here's something to think about. 1% of, for instance, $31 trillion is $310 billion. right? So that in itself, if you want to add that up for even just the likes of XRP and so on, not to mention the likes of XLM and so on, that's a dramatic increase for the overall crypto market cap, right? You can do more of your own math and so on. I think, if anything, that gives a huge jump start, if you will, to get this thing going, because then people will see the focus basically is what's going on in the financial sectors and so on, will be enough to carry us on over, because I mean, let's face it, 81% of the overall crypto market cap is still involved with Bitcoin and Ethereum. And that, of course, will be the whole debate going forward. But, that's what excites me. And that's why I keep covering it on the recording and so on. It's just there's a lot that's going to be happening, and I'm watching it like a hawk. So there you go.
Well, and I'll say, I think what really can jumpstart this, and you're starting to see a little bit of it now, and it's kind of an unpopular opinion, but I have it, is institutional money, and that's what's going to start your bull run. It's not the retail investors that'll start it. And Fidelity has just put out their centralized, well, yeah, we can call it a centralized exchange. JP Morgan is working on theirs. Samsung is working on theirs. So you're going to see a lot of institutional money coming into Bitcoin and Ethereum, because them are the two that they're trading right now. And I think if you can really, if the investors that trade on them platforms really start to invest the money that we think that they're going to invest on them platforms, that too could also take you over the top, because there's a lot of money that is sitting there, and there's a lot of money that's sitting on the sidelines. And let's face it, we just talked about KuCoin, right? Somebody that's invested in Fidelity that already has a money market account, they're going to feel a whole hell of a lot safer trading on Fidelity than they are trading on KuCoin. So they're more apt to throw money in there, and they're more apt to spend in places that they're comfortable, in places that they feel secure. So depending on the rate that they roll these centralized exchanges out, could also jumpstart a bull run. Because think about when you got in, or when anybody else got into crypto, how far did you really go back and look at a Bitcoin chart or Ethereum chart or BNB chart, or were you just putting your money in there so you're buying on top of the high, right? So just think about all these new investors that are coming in. They're buying on top of the high, and they're just driving it up. And so that too could put you over the top as well.
Yeah, it's basically what you're saying, is retail FOMO, but on the other hand, like, to a sense, there's also institutional FOMO, but it's not really FOMO. It's more like a mandate,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I think, as you guys will all agree, the first thing that's going to happen is the regulation, and then you'll see the institutional investors come in, big time when they feel more secure. Brian Dowie has a prediction for the bull run. He says it's going to be March 20th. I'm presuming he means 2023, but correct me if I'm wrong. Of course, you guys know my prediction. I'm just going to ride and die with it. But you know what? It could be February 14, 2024.
He went Valentine's Day.
Valentine's Day. I've been saying it for a long time. And also 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I even give you a time. So if anybody else says that, that they got it from me.
All right. I think we're all pretty close to where our estimates are, whether it's at the start of 2023 or in the middle or at the end or going into early 2024.
Beginning of 2024, yeah.
I think we're all kind of close right there. I just think it's a matter of what leads up to that is going to kick that bull run in. And
Mr. Max P says, great show, guys. If you guys just joined us, you're watching Crypto Talk Now live with Max, Daniel, myself, Larry, and of course, your lovable crypto family-friendly dog, Patches. Let's see who else is here. Tim Shea says, Brian, just after the hangovers from St. Patty's Day.
Thanks,
and yes,
Max
Brian.
P, and also Tim Shea, Brian, all you guys. We really appreciate you guys being here. I know we got kind of some low attendance lately. I do apologize for not getting the thumbnail out. I try to get it out like 24 hours at least in advance and so on. This morning I got really tired and so on, and I was like, then I woke up later and I was like, oh no, I forgot to set a broadcast for the live. As you guys know, I put out like 3 videos for the recorded and so on. So that's my bad. I apologize. That's on me. So if you got the notification late or didn't get it at all, you can totally blame me for that one.
March 20th, 2023. That's not a bad guess there, Brian Dowie. B. Ricky, aka Santa Claus. Larry, don't know. Laugh out loud. All right, yeah.
Hey man, well hold on. Let's take a look at that. Look at him. Look at Ricky in that.
He's Santa Claus.
Yeah, I know, but look at that's totally him. That's cool, Ricky. Right on, man. Welcome back.
I would imagine he would be like dressed up like the Grinch instead of Santa Claus. I could be wrong. I mean, I say that
funny.
Affectionately, Uncle Ricky.
Just like that, we lost 3 people. No, I'm kidding. All right. I'm not kidding. We actually did. Anyway.
All right. So, Max, so we talked about KuCoin at length. We talked about the overall sentiment in the markets kind of down. Where would you like to pivot to at this point? What else is going on in the news? Anything?
Well,
anything
I have some brief stellar, XLM news. And let's face it, even when it comes to community driven news, like, I was talking to Larry about this earlier. So like, a lot of you guys, of course, you follow us, you follow some of your other favorite stations, networks, shows, and so on. There's a huge difference when it comes to crypto, mainstream media news and the community driven stuff, right? So when it comes to stellar lumens, like there is just not a lot of community driven like news at all in regards to that. But I did find some, and I thought to myself, all right, well, perfect time to, of course, share some of this. So I'm gonna go ahead and just do that. I'm gonna share this right here now with you guys. And of course, it is in regards to XLM. So let me just pull it up. And if anything, check this out for yourself. So for instance, there's this right here. And it's basically like what you see on the screen. It says the National Bank of Ukraine releases a draft concept for digital hryvnia partnership with Stellar, continues and so on. The significance is basically this, right? So before, of course, the Russian-Ukraine war, the Ukraine really stood out as being literally like the top country of the world for crypto adoption, if you will. So like before, of course, the whole thing broke out with this horrible war that's going on and so on. Like roughly about, I think it was like 2 to 3% of the world, is into crypto. If you look at, but Ukraine at that time, it was like something like 12%. And of course, as the war went on and so on, those figures went up dramatically because, like fiat was just almost darn right worthless to them, as in like the citizens. I'm not talking about, as far as, Zelensky getting on TV or whatever saying, hey, send us 100 billion in aid. That's totally different. But check this out. So there's a partnership that they have going on. And when I went here, for instance, it's going to take a moment to load this up. It came straight from Cointelegraph, and this wasn't that long ago. It was about 2 days ago. But some of the key takeaways is kind of like, let's face it, what we've been hearing lately when it comes to the whole thing with CBDs and so on. But it says the National Bank of Ukraine, the NBU, has introduced a draft concept for its central bank digital currency candidate, digital hryvnia. I'm sure your girlfriend could pronounce that better than I could, Larry. But it says, it says Ukraine's central bank on November 8th released a statement on the concept of hryvnia, which aims to perform which aims to perform all the functions of money by supplementing cash and non-cash forms of the hryvnia as its key purpose. In regards to this, it says the NBU said it has presented the hryvnia concept and it continues developing the CBDC project with participants of the virtual assets market, payment firms, and state bodies. Now, I'm not going to read all this and so on, but another key area is this right here. It says, for instance, quote, the hryvnia can become one of the key elements of quality infrastructure development for virtual assets market in Ukraine, the announcement notes. The significance also is that if you think about what would be the driving force of some of these particular technologies. For one, you already have the whole thing with stellar lumens and so on. It creates that much more demand, and especially for their particular situation with what they got going on, you do need a fast and secure cross-border payment. We're always talking about, for instance, what's going on with institutional money, follow where it goes, and so on. We're always talking about, for instance, the likes of XRP is not focused on the retail side. It's focused on the like the financial sector side of things, right? And so on. But when it comes to XLM, it actually is a lot of, what's happening between like the peer-to-peer transfers, right? Like, hence why we mentioned, Stellar Lumens is the Western Union of crypto. I don't know if it necessarily deserves that title because the Western Union is slow, right? But if anything, again, it's still that peer-to-peer is my key takeaway. And that is the distinct difference between the two, because I mean, a lot of times people are always mentioning those two in the same type of light, same type of sentence, and so on. So I thought this was really, really big. It's not enough, of course, to move, the needle, if you will, and so on. But when this no longer becomes a concept and it becomes like a full reality, especially with CBDCs, because let's face it, coming in 2023 with the flip of the switch, if you will, then a lot of these CBDCs will be coming on board full force, right? For instance, with what's going on with the UK, all over, with the central banks through all, through, I should say, most of Europe and so on, heck, even Asia Pacific areas and so on. But this is really huge. It's a big thing, to say the least, for what's going on with the likes of Ukraine, and of course to have Stellar Lumens in the mix, Stellar with what they provide and so on. I think if anything, you will see how significant that will become within the coming months, to say the least. So that was, pretty decent news. Not exactly huge or anything like that, but definitely will be when this is no longer a concept. There's some other news I was going to share with you guys in regards to Luna Classic. Maybe some of you guys saw some of that, but if anything, I'm just going to go ahead and do a stop share and kick it back to you guys for the brief moment.
No, and I like what you said about XRP and Stellar too. I find myself always correcting people with that. Is XRP is mostly banking, Stellar is mostly peer to peer, and don't the two are not equal. The two are not the same. They do two very different. And I think sometimes people get them confused and they try to lump them in the same basket. And they're just not the same. They're not the same coin.
Right. It's not the same. I mean, the key thing is, I think where people do lump them into the same basket, as far as the speed of transactions, and the focus on just that, like the cross-border payments and whatnot. But it is a huge difference between peer-to-peer and then also transferring this from point A of, an institutional side of things to another one, right? Where it's just that those are the two key differences and so on. So I'm glad that, other people like yourself and so on realize that. So there's the news in regards to Stellar, guys. It's not a lot, because let's face it, when it comes to Stellar, sometimes you have to kind of go to the mainstream outlets, if you will. And a lot of times they just focus on the technical analysis side of it. Like, oh, this is going to move like maybe 4 cents up and so on. Like, really? That is not why I'm into Stellar Lumens. I'm into the Stellar for this flip of the switch, not watch this thing go up like 3 cents. So, yeah.
My Stellar bags are packed for the bull run.
Yeah, same here. Yeah, I literally, like I mentioned, the guys, I doubled my position recently because it seemed like the thing to do. I originally got in Stellar roughly around 26, 28 cents. And then based off the last big crash after the whole thing with FTX, I saw that, for instance, it was like roughly 8.5 cents. I mean, that's huge difference compared to my first bag.
It's been hovering right around 8 to 9 cent range for a while now.
Yeah, so I think that's a new support, unless we have something crazy, happen in the world to make it drop.
So I just my bags are packed, but I just, every time it drops down to that 8.5 level, I add a little bit more, just add a little bit more, just keep adding a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely.
So chiming in about the centralized dollar with, the US and possibly other governments coming out with them. So I'm just thinking now, this could be, I could be off with this, but I would think that it would again behoove, I like saying that, it would behoove our government, the U.S. government, because they like to, they like to have order out of chaos, right? So I'm just kind of thinking like the way the government would. I would think they would introduce the centralized dollar during a bad time economically. So if there's rumors of it coming out next year, I think that we will have a big crash, like in the stock market specifically, and then crypto will follow. So, what are your guys' thoughts on that? Do you think, don't you see them issuing the centralized dollar after, some people would call it the Great Reset, things like that? Do you think there'll be like a worldwide economic, like, recession, maybe even a depression or like a meltdown, and then they'll kind of present us with this digital dollar, and then we go on the bull run from there? I mean, do you have thoughts on that, or do you think they'll just do it during normal economic times, or just like, oh, guys, by the way, we have this, digital dollar, you guys should use it? Do you know what I mean? Like, are they waiting for like a big crash in the overall like equities market and everything in order to introduce it?
I think they're waiting to get their hands on stable coin regulation, and what
Mm-hmm.
they're going to do is they're going to come out and say, because that's going to be the first thing to be regulated is stable coins, and then
Right. Yeah.
central changes, because them are the low hanging fruit, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think once they get their hands on stable coins, that's going to give them an excuse to say, none of these work, can't back any of these up. We're going to come out with the United States digital dollar. It's going to be backed up by the dollar, and banks are going to all jump on board and say, this is the only thing that we're going to onboard and offboard.
And maybe wouldn't it be interesting, Max, if they backed the digital dollar with gold? That idea was kind of tossed around a little bit, right?
Well, even that's the whole thing. Like I mentioned before, it's like the whole concept of Bitcoin being a hedge against inflation. In reality, it's not. It's a hedge against money printing. And the problem that we have currently speaking is since 1971, when we got off of the gold standard, right, and so on, we just dug our hole more and more and added more and more debt. I mean, come on, $31 trillion is what we're in. And it's just a money printing machine it keeps going on. Heck, by 2026, it's supposed to be as high as 41 trillion. So if anything, I mean, I'm not exactly a fan of, Klaus Schwab, the creator of the World Economic Forum. I mean, in reality, the guy, to a sense, is kind of like a real life supervillain, really, right? But whether we like it or not, CBDCs are here. Whether a person buys any XRP or any Stellar Lumens or some of these other ones, right? CBDCs are going to come, like it or not. Might as well get involved with some of these technologies that are going to be some of the driving force, if you will. So back to what you were saying, Larry, in regards to the whole thing about the US dollar, for instance, being backed by gold. I don't necessarily think it will be backed by gold, but the key thing is this. If the driving force of these CBDCs, for instance, XRP and so on, is backed by gold, then you have just that in itself, right? Stellar Lumens, for instance, backed by silver. That's the point I'm trying to make. So if anything, you're going to see more of that adoption, because if anything, the adoption kicks in because it becomes a mandate. A mandate's a whole other, thing in itself, So, and I understand for, the newcomers and so on, it's kind of hard to wrap your head around it. You know what I mean? Because it's like, well, wow, this is crazy. I mean, retail adoption is a whole other story when it comes to, not just federal mandates, but like literally world mandates from what the World Economic Forum basically is getting rolling here soon. And then, of course, following where that institutional money is going, literally, it's going to what you're seeing, with these countries all over the world. I mean, especially with the central banks and so on. I mean, it's a big statement for instance, on my recent coverage with the Bank of London basically stating that, banks, not just saying specifically, just central banks, but literally banks will be using Ripple's XRP, like quote unquote. That's massive. So that's where I'm at.
The old man up. The old man came out of the cave to print some more money. I put him up on the screen while you were saying that. You see,
I did catch one of your videos, Max, and I was just sitting over here laughing because it's almost like it was on repeat from one of your videos when you were talking about the CBDCs being backed by buy gold and how they should be. And I was like, man, I watched that video. I like listened to you say that, and
Yeah,
it
yeah.
replayed in my head.
Well,
Really,
sometimes I got to make a replay for people because
yeah,
I mean, it's not that I'm trying to sound like a broken record or anything, but it is where it's at. I mean, it's just like you think about it, man. I mean, if the United States dollar is continually going to be a money printing machine, then something has to be stopped at a blockade, if you will. And it's again like this introduction of it. I mean, I understand both sides of the debate. One side of the debate is like, why would we want to support CBDCs if Klaus Schwab is literally the supervillain behind it all and so on, and it's just part of the quote unquote the new world order. I'm not trying to sound like a conspiracy theorist nut. That's not my goal, but I will state that it's like the monetary system, like Gilbert Verdian from Quant basically mentioned. I'm on par with him on this, and that is he has stated that when it comes to all this, it's not that the monetary system is going to be like it's our way or the highway, CBDCs, and that's it. It's to complement the current monetary system. And even Elon Musk has said this before. Fiat is not going to go away. You know what I mean? Not going to go away completely, but you're going to have a new system that's going to be a lot more efficient and a lot more effective. Here's another crazy perspective, right? It's kind of like saying the home phone, right? A lot of senior citizens, they're the only ones that use it. They represent a small percentage of people, right? But technically speaking, that has not gone away, completely. Now, apples and oranges, sort of. But think about what I'm saying. Fiat, to a sense, there's always going to be some of that to a sense, right? You're going to tell me that the U.S. government is going to round up all the tokens or coins, I should say, all the actual physical cash, right? All of it. And if you hold any of the old cash, that is just going to be absolutely worthless. I get it. Some people are probably on that whole, bandwagon, if you will. And they're like, that's exactly what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is, I don't think that's the case. Again, I think it's going to complement. And if anything, it's not going to replace it completely. So
I think it's going to complement it for a while, for a long time. But I think as generations start to,
that's a good point too. I get where you're going with it. Yeah. Yeah. Like eventually the old will phase out. Kind of like, for instance, what was it? 1865. Yeah. Technically speaking. Right. So you had the physical gold tokens and gold coins. Right. And it was literally, melted down from actual physical gold, physical silver and so on. And then we went from that to actual physical cash. That is a good point. And it did take generations. I'm talking about at first. To see how it be completely replace the current monetary system? No, it'd be, if anything, it would complement. It'd be an upgrade.
Yeah, I think it's going to complement it, and I think you're going to see a lot of people move to it, but you're still going to have them stragglers. I mean, how you still get in line behind people who still write checks at the grocery store, right? Like
I have not seen that. I'm sure it still exists, but yeah,
it does. And I only bring that example up because I was behind one last week.
Oh my gosh!
The lady was writing a check, and I'm like, "Them things still exist. I still have my starter checks. Like, come on, let's go." But I think it's just gonna take a while, and this is why, like when we started talking earlier too, I said, crypto's not going anywhere because blockchain's not going anywhere.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you pointed that out. Yeah,
blockchain's the future.
Oh no, I'm sorry. Yep. I'm sorry. What were you saying, Daniel?
I was just saying blockchain's the future, and the younger kids are seeing that, and they're going to build off of that, and we're going to take it so far, they're going to take it further, and it's just going to keep going. So eventually blockchain and CBDCs and everything that we're talking about now will eventually fade its way into the system in the long run.
So I think the way they'll get people to have mass adoption for the centralized dollars is, and then also crypto the same way, is it's going to be a convenience issue. So if you think about when you go to the gas station, you live in Buffalo, so it's cold. It's been cold here in North Carolina too, or tonight it was, but Max, not so much, right? Because it's Arizona. But when you go out,
northern Arizona is cold. Sorry.
When you go out and it's cold and you want to get some gas for your vehicle, and you're like, you want to hurry up, do you want to take the time to run into the gas station and pay with cash, or do you want to just take your credit card or debit card and swipe it through the machine? So I just think like something like that is kind of like the way, you know, more people prefer to pay with their card at the pump, right? So when they make it easier for you to pay with a digital dollar over cash, you know, they'll have some places won't accept cash, for example, or, you know, people will just, there might be discounts in the beginning for people to use the digital dollar. I think they'll get people to adopt it because of convenience reasons.
Man, I can just picture that as you're speaking. So it's like I'm literally looking at the future. Like, guy pulls up to, for instance, the pump. Well, maybe by then it was just, you know, the mass adoption is electric. But let's just say, for instance, guy pulls up to the pump, right? Pulls out his card. And I know that, you know, there's a lot of focus on, for instance, like, well, Max, what you're mentioning is retail. Hear me out. I'm not saying specifically XRP, but let's say, for instance, we're talking about peer-to-peer. It is Stellar. So they pull out a Stellar card or something like that, right? And they literally go up to it, kind of like what you do, for instance, when you pay with the modern chipped debit cards. You just, you know, touch the thing. I don't know if you guys done that. You literally just touch it,
Yeah.
you pay for it. I'm literally looking at it from that perspective. Boom, touch it, it's done. Why? Because that technology, think about the TPS on that. So literally people coming up, boom, done, get their gas, whatever, they're done. It's no big deal. You know what I mean? And yeah.
And I look at it one step further, Max. I look at it as it being in the palm of your hand in your phone, right? Like, so let's say, you know, you have it, it's in your palm of your hand, you have your Stellar, you tap your phone on it, on whatever you said you were going to swipe, and you're done. It's gone. You're done.
Right, built into the app, because that also makes sense. Yes, absolutely.
So you're manipulating that right through your phone. And when you think about mass adoption, that's how you're gonna. I'm with you. Like, that's how you're gonna get it. When you get to that point where it's so convenient, either
So
you
convenient,
take a card or you take your phone, and all the stores are saying, "Yeah, we have it," and yes, the transactions are fast enough that they're not going to hold up the lines. Um, you're good.
I bet. No, here's another quick example. I agree with you about when you go to like Walmart, right? You go to Walmart and you have certain checkout ones that are automated, or the self-checkout is what I mean. They'll say card only, you know, no cash. So sometimes if I want to pay with cash, I have to go sit in a longer or stand in a longer line because I can't go through the self-checkout to buy like a pack of gum with cash. I have to use a card. So if I don't have a card, I'm out of luck. So I think that's what they'll do. They'll steer people into the digital dollar by just making it not so convenient to pay with cash. That's just the guess that.
Well, I recently saw something about what you're talking about, Larry. Literally, this is going on as we speak. So they're already creating a more advanced checkout, if you will, when it comes to some of this. So, for instance, the person, they go out, they get everything they need, basically, and so on. And instead of them wait until the last second to go to that particular checkout, it's already in their smart shopping cart. That's what it is. It's a shopping cart. It's called like a smart shopping cart. And on top of that, they get everything that they need, and it's tied into their phone, like what Daniel was saying, and so on. And then boom, that's checked out because they literally have a special bag to put it all in. And if anything, I mean, that might be the introduction of what's going to happen for the future. Because I mean, come on, man, I'm getting so sick and tired. I'm sure you guys are as well. Going down to Walmart and standing in line for like an hour, to check out. That's BS. I mean, yeah, you know, you think about blockchain technology, right? Like Bitcoin and how slow it is, right? And the likes of Ripple and XRP and Stellar Limits and so on. You take that technology and add it to even some of those things. Do you think Ripple or Stellar are not even thinking about that as we speak? I'm sure they are.
And that's what I was saying about the speed of transactions, right? So that's why where XRP and XLM and all them guys step in, because they're just so lightning fast. You couldn't do it with Ethereum, because how many times have you sat there and you tried to make a trade with Ethereum and you spun for a little while, right? You can't have that in the line. But this takes me back to Amazon. When Amazon first bought Whole Foods, they literally had self stores you could walk in where no cashiers were.
I read an article about that. Yes. Yeah.
So we're talking about going back there where you just would like pick up something, scan it, put it in your cart, pick up something, scan it in your cart, and on the way out you just paid with your debit card right on your phone. And that was it. There was nobody there to check you out. So these are the types of things that I think blockchain will bring and the convenience of blockchain and the convenience of CBDCs will allow these things to happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's just bring in thank you to Cassius. Don't call me Cassius Clay, but Cassius Space for the $5 donation. Luna Classic is pumping. And we've heard that in a chat from a couple people. Is this from the Binance burn or something else?
It absolutely is from the Binance burn, and I'm glad you brought that up. We'll just go ahead and do as Larry would say, a segue in regards to that, and get right into that particular brief coverage that we have. Thank you, Cassius Space, as usual, for the super chats. As of lately, like you know, you're back, you're in here. We really appreciate you. Thank you again for the $5 super chat. Let's go ahead and bring that up as we speak. I'm just going to present this. Maybe you guys saw this, for instance, from Classy Crypto. And basically, check this out. You know, like he posted earlier, it says, Just in Luna Classic has reclaimed a 1 billion market cap as a relief rally ensues. You know, basically, you know, Luna Classic is doing well compared to, like, you know, the rest of the market. I mean, it's nothing like huge or massive or anything like that as far as the percentage, but it is worth noting, like Classy basically showed right here, that it's back up to a billion. That's a real positive thing for Luna Classic. On top of that, there's this. So, for instance, you know, it says a major Luna Classic proposal, of course, has just entered the discussion phase. It states Fafi is a core contributor toward Luna Classic and has now released a potential, what could be a Luna Classic DEX. That's a positive catalyst. Now, is it in relation, of course, to this pump? Highly doubt it, right? Because again, it's just a particular proposal. But this is a good thing because if anything, you want to see come on, a DEX for, you know, Luna Classic, that'd be great. But yes, to answer your question, I think it is in relation to what we basically recently seen with the whole thing with Binance, like you just basically mentioned, Cassius. I think that's definitely what's going on. And again, it's not going to be anything so huge. But I mean, currently speaking, I'm gonna stop the share. I'm gonna bring up CMC for just a moment. But you know, we're looking at the rest of the overall crypto market, and you know, things are currently down as we speak, slightly, right? So there's this right here, and yeah, I mean, look at the overall crypto market sitting at 850, you know, billion roughly, and so on. Bitcoin's trending. Solana is probably going to continue to trend for quite a bit in a negative manner, but Bitcoin drops slightly below that 17,000 mark, and then of course we have ETH and so on. But when you go further down, right, to the likes of Luna Classic, look at that. That's a standout one right now at about roughly 15%. And on the 1 hour, what's going on with the 1 hour at 7%? So with that said, let's just take a brief moment to see real quick what is going on with just that on the 1 hour. I'm going to bring up this particular chart straight from KuCoin. We haven't done this in a while, but I want to go ahead and present this to you guys on this particular share. Let's go ahead and pull that up. So here it is, straight from KuCoin, and let's look at the 1 hour on that. Ooh, that is what's going on. So this looks pretty bullish to say the least. Looks like, you know, like a start of a god candle, if you will. There's a little bit of a sell-off right after that, but if anything, that's reflective, right, of what's going on to see that on CMC. Let's see what's going on, for instance, on the 1 day candles. You know, again, some indicators just basically show some of this. Everything is reflective on this particular start of a god candle, if you will. So this is really big. And even on KuCoin, you do see it's up about roughly 15%. Again, guys, share, you know, in the community what you guys also think it is. Is it more than just what's going on with Binance? I'll kick it over to you, Larry, and also Daniel. What do you guys think is going on with this in regards to Luna Classic?
I just think it's like a, you know, it's like a vicious cycle. It's a good cycle in a way, but it's, you know, definitely a catalyst from the Binance burn. I just think that that's what it needs to do. I should just put that back there. That's what it just needs to do, is just to have more burns. Other than that, you know, there's not really a lot of talk about new projects going on there. I know they lost a lot. So I don't really have too much to, you know, comment on it. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious what it's about. But I can't say that I study it every single day. I can't say that because I haven't been. But I don't know, Daniel, are you in Luna Classic? I can't remember. I think you weren't, right?
I have a moon bag in Luna Classic, but I
Okay.
exited a large position. I don't. I have my own feelings about Luna Classic, where they're at.
Yeah. So there hasn't,
Yeah, fair enough, right?
yeah, there hasn't been much really going on except for, just now. So it's very, very dependent on the burns. I would like to see them, get some projects back. But Max, you probably, of course, you've been studying it closer than
Well,
I have.
yeah, I mean, I've dollar cost averaged into Luna Classic. Let's see, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times,
Hmm.
and I've, oh man, I don't know. I would have to add up how much I put into it, but I probably put in like at least, I don't know, 1,500, 2,000, probably about a couple $1,000 into it. So
Let's welcome Daniel. Don't call me Carlos Delgado. It's a project that should have been investigated, but apparently XRP is more important. Thank you so much for being here, Daniel. I have not seen you here before. We have another Daniel here on the show, of course. But thank you for
good to see
being
you,
here.
Daniel. Thank you so much for some of the recent comments you had, especially on the recorded, and especially coming from the recorded to here. That means a lot to us. So good to see you, Daniel.
Yep. We're here every single night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Crypto Talk Now live. But yeah, so
I will say about Luna Classic, for me, like, people have to understand, like, I bought in a long when it first started to collapse. So my dollar cost average is way back there, right? So I'm okay. I'm good with my Luna Classic. And I made some money and I swing traded it quite when it first collapsed for a while, weeks. And I made some good money there. But my, when it comes to Luna Classic, burns aren't going to get you where you want to go. You can't burn enough of the supply. Got to get that. Got to get that blockchain up. You got to get it running. You have to get at. You got to get. You got to get projects on there. You have to. You have to get that thing moving. Staking and burning is not going to get you to where you want to go. I hear some crazy projections about Luna Classic to $1, Luna Classic to a penny. None of that is going to happen with just burns and staking. You got to have more. Communities have to come together. Somebody has to have a clear plan. Somebody has to execute that plan, and you can't have everybody driving a ship in 6 different directions and come to a solid point. So
Yeah, that's a great point. For me, the reason why I'm sharing this, just in regards to that, it's not just like it's not the burns, obviously, just that specifically. I think it's proven that that's not going to be the thing that gets over the hump, like basically Daniel mentioned. I think if anything, it's kind of like, again, and I wish more and more people would share this specifically, because this gives a real outline for what needs to be accomplished in 2023. Even just looking at this briefly, skimming over it, 2023 definitely stands out for Luna Classic. I mean, all these things that are basically listed and so on, if they were to accomplish, most of these things they have outlined and so on, I think if anything, that's how to get things going. When I hear talk about, this particular person want, from, whether it's from the Terror Rebels, or heck, even some of the other guys that are not necessarily part of that, but just a top advocate for the community, bringing up some either proposals or ideas and so on, and then getting them implemented is the key thing. And also, especially, here's the main thing for me personally, is when you hear people saying, let's put focus on getting this thing back to what made it stand out originally before the collapse, right? Not repeating the same mistakes as far as like, from an algorithmic point of view, right? Maybe you implement a little bit of what worked, but not like fully, where, like I mentioned before, where you have more money going out than what was coming in. But again, getting back to what made Terra, right, stand out, where it was like $100+ and so on. They even get a little fraction of that. Again, what is that going to consist of and entail? building up that ecosystem and so on. That is the main thing, you know, and I like seeing this. We're on the other hand, like I mentioned, we don't need a lot of people saying, well, we need, you know, Coinbase to, you know, list Luna Classic again. To heck with Coinbase. Want to know why I'm saying to hell with Coinbase? Two main reasons. The wrapped Luna, that's absolute theft. They're never going to address that. I hate to say that. Their CEO is not addressing that. It's an absolute travesty. And then on top of that, what's going to happen on the 5th? More people, guarantee you hear me say it right now. You're hearing me say it right now. I'm going to say it again. You're going to see a lot of coverage, especially from top influencers here soon when it comes to the whole thing with Coinbase and this whole thing with XRP. Why? Because you have to have a 10 minimum of XRP on there. So you're going to tell me that on the 5th, you're going to lose support for XRP. You're going to rob people's 10 minimum XRP. Start adding that up in the millions and so on. That's a lot of XRP. So you stole people's wrap Luna, you know, then it's going to be the XRP. To hell with Coinbase.
And my thing with Luna is this is the beauty of buying of trading, right? Because Luna Classic can be the biggest comeback story ever in crypto history, ever, for a long time. It literally can be the biggest comeback ever. And if I see things moving in the right direction, because I watch Luna Classic all the time, I will jump back into that project in a heartbeat. But I'm with you, Max. I don't want to hear about Coinbase relisting Luna Classic. I don't want to hear that the burns are going to save it. What I want to hear is we're going to get this blockchain up and running. We're going to concentrate on what got us to where we were at before all this happened. We're going to concentrate on all that, and we're going to build around that. We're going to make sure that happens, and that's going to be our focus. And that it can be the biggest comeback story ever. It literally can, and it's right that you have all the Luna Classic community has all the tools to make that happen already. They have them all. You already have a blockchain. You got to get it moving. You have to get that moving, and everything else will follow. All your listings, all the tier 1 listings, all the relistings, all that will follow when you do exactly what you're supposed to do, and that's build your project out the way that you're supposed to build it out and get it back up and moving. Nothing else matters.
Absolutely.
Nothing else matters. So
let's bring another comment in here. Daniel Delgado. It was a surprise to be nice. Well, made one to burn deflationary stable coin, but that negative 20% APR in Anchor protocol. And what did you think happened? A random depegging, laugh out loud. All right. So we had a good show today. I think we need to start to wrap things up. We really, it was a really, really good show. So we talked about a lot about some different topics, and we got into some different things. I'll let you go first, Max, and then let's have Daniel have the final word.
Sure thing. Daniel, it's been really nice actually having you here tonight in person, well, let's face it, virtually speaking, right? We're in the metaverse, right? Sort of. Anyway, but it's been really cool, instead of just having you in the comments and whatnot. I think you're a great content creator. I love that you just keep grinding. We all have big dreams, let's face it, and it is guys, let's face it, it's an absolute grind to be here every day and try to do this, especially in a bear market. Our numbers reflect that and so on. But all I got to say is I cannot thank you guys enough, especially our community and so on, for being here faithfully, watching us on CTN, whether it's the recorded videos, the live, and so on. And Daniel, hats off to you, man. A lot of times I'll see you like just briefly in the morning. I want to stop by and say hello and do my thing and so on, but it's, in the morning, sometimes I just have to get going. But I tip my hat off to you if I have one, and basically say, just keep plugging away at it and so on. And I would love to have you back here. And if anything, I would even love to join you. Not that I'm trying to invite myself, if I did get the invite, on yours and so on. But guys, community people who are watching right now, if you're not following Daniel Gayton, show the brother some love, give him that support. go over to his particular channel. I'm sure Larry will show it here in just a moment,
Mhm.
and follow him, because he's very passionate about what he talks about with crypto and so on. Again, we were talking about the whole thing of KuCoin at the beginning of the show and so on. He has great insight. Daniel, thanks again, man, for being here. Really, really appreciate you. We're going to kick it over to you.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. I absolutely love to be here, and when I get the invite, it's always a yes. I love the channel. I love the community. I love what you guys are doing. Love your guys' videos. Great conversation tonight. I think we kick some things back and forth, which I always love to do. I just love to talk about crypto, love to talk about investing, love to talk about where the market's going and the innovations that are coming through crypto. So I believe crypto's the future. I believe it's where it's headed, and I just love to talk about it, and I love to talk about it on this channel. And I think you guys are great, and love the community, like I said. And this is always a pleasure for me to come on here, and I always appreciate the conversation.
Well, thank you for the kind words. Yeah, thank you, Daniel, for the kind words. All right, well, that wraps it up, guys. Thank you so much for watching out there. Be good, be safe, and we'll see you again tomorrow at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
See you guys. Over and out.
See you guys later.